Let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you known exactly what you needed to do, but you just didn't follow through? You had the plan, you had the knowledge, you even had the desire, but when it came down to action, you stopped yourself. Maybe you said, I'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow never came. Maybe you promised yourself this time would be different, but 2 weeks later, you were back in the same cycle. That gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do, that's where your life is decided. That gap is the difference between people who live average and people who live extraordinary. And in 2025, that gap has never been more dangerous because we live in a world of distractions designed to steal your focus, weaken your willpower, and keep you stuck in comfort. You don't even need discipline to survive anymore. You need it to thrive. And if you don't build it, we'll build chains for you, chains of regret, chains of laziness, chains of wasted potential. But here's the truth, you're not broken. You don't lack discipline because you're weak. You lack discipline because no one ever showed you how to master it. And when you learn the steps, when you condition it into your identity, self-discipline stops being something you fight for. It becomes who you are. Today, I'm going to give you those steps, 5 steps that if you commit will rewire the way you see yourself, the way you make decisions, and the way you follow through. And if you stay with me until the end, you won't just learn discipline, you'll own it. Because 2025 doesn't reward the smartest. It doesn't reward the luckiest. It rewards the most disciplined. So if you're tired of starting and stopping, if you're ready to break free from the cycle that's been holding you back, lean in, because this is the moment your life can shift. The very first step to mastering self-discipline doesn't begin with what you do. It begins with who you decide you are. Let me say that again. It's not about what you do. It's about who you decide you are. Every single action you take in your life, every single behavior you repeat is tied to the identity you've accepted for yourself. If deep down you see yourself as someone who's inconsistent, who starts and stops, who procrastinates, then you can set all the goals in the world. You can make the most perfect plan, but your brain will always pull you back into alignment with that identity. You'll sabotage yourself, not because you don't want success, because success doesn't match the story you've been telling yourself about you. Think about it. If someone says to themselves, I'm just not a disciplined person, I've never been consistent, I always mess up. Guess what? They'll find a way to prove themselves right. That's not a lack of ability, it's the power of identity. Your identity is the strongest force in the human psyche. You will do whatever it takes to stay consistent with who you believe you are. If you want to build unbreakable discipline, the first shift isn't forcing yourself to grind harder, it's rewriting who you are at the core. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I met a man who struggled with his health. He had tried every diet, every routine, but nothing lasted. When we spoke, he told me, I'm just the kind of guy who loves junk food. I can't stick to healthy eating. That was his identity. So no matter how much he wanted change, he'd sabotage himself because being disciplined about food didn't fit the image he had of himself. The moment he shifted his language, the moment he started saying, I'm the kind of man who respects his body. I don't eat trash because I value my health. Everything shifted. The behaviors followed the belief. He didn't just change what he ate. He changed who he was. Now, some of you might be thinking, but that's not me. I've failed too many times. I can't just flip a switch and change who I am. Listen to me. Yes, you can. Identity isn't something you're born with. Identity is something you decide, reinforce, and condition. Every single one of us has multiple identities in our life. You might be lazy in one area but powerful in another. You might be undisciplined with your fitness but unstoppable in your business. Why? Because in one area you've chosen a story that empowers you, and in the other you've chosen a story that limits you. And in 2025, the people who win will be the ones who stop clinging to old stories and start writing new ones. Here's the key. You don't become disciplined by willpower. You become disciplined by ownership. You declare, this is who I am, and then you act in alignment with it until it becomes undeniable. At first, it feels like a stretch. At first, your brain will scream, that's not true. But here's what you need to remember. Identity is not about accuracy, it's about direction. You don't claim the identity you already have, you claim the identity of who you are becoming. The more you act in alignment with it, the more your nervous system wires it in. Think of an athlete. A professional athlete doesn't wake up every day asking, should I train today? Should I stick to my routine? No. They've already decided who they are. They are an athlete. And because of that identity, the action is automatic. Discipline doesn't even feel like discipline. It feels like breathing. That's the level you want to get to. So how do you make that shift? You begin by interrupting the old language and conditioning the new one. You stop saying, I'm not disciplined. I can't focus. I always quit. That language is poison. Instead, you begin to declare the identity you want out loud consistently until it becomes real. I am disciplined. I am the kind of person who follows through no matter what. I am consistent because my future deserves consistency. Your brain might fight it at first. Repetition is how beliefs are built. And don't just say it, prove it to yourself with small wins. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for your new identity. You're wiring your brain to believe it. You get up on time instead of snoozing, that's a vote. You finish the workout when you wanted to quit, that's a vote. You do the work instead of scrolling on your phone, that's a vote. Each little victory is evidence. And with enough evidence, identity locks in. At that point, you're no longer trying to be disciplined, you are disciplined. But here's the catch, the opposite is also true. Every time you break your own word, every time you choose comfort over commitment, you're voting for the old identity. You're reinforcing the belief that you're not disciplined. That's why this matters so much. Because it's never just about one choice. It's about the identity you're reinforcing with every choice. I want you to imagine something. Imagine yourself 12 months from now. Imagine it's August 2026, and you've lived every single day from now until then as a person who is disciplined. You no longer question if you'll follow through. You just do. You no longer fight yourself. You've aligned yourself. Imagine the confidence that gives you. Imagine the energy, the results, the pride you feel in yourself. That future is not just possible, it's inevitable the moment you decide that's who you are today. And let me tell you something powerful. Discipline isn't just about achieving goals, it's about creating freedom. Freedom. People think discipline is restrictive, but it's the opposite. The disciplined person has the freedom to live life on their terms. The undisciplined person is a slave to their impulses, a prisoner of procrastination, a victim of their own excuses. The disciplined person is free. Which life do you want? At the end of the day, it's simple. Who you believe you are determines what you'll do. If you want to master self-discipline in 2025, stop waiting for motivation, stop waiting for the perfect plan, and make the most important decision you'll ever make. Decide who you are, not who you've been, not who others told you are. Who you are now, who you choose to be moving forward. Because once you shift your identity, everything else follows. That's where discipline begins. The second step to mastering self-discipline in 2025 is breaking the addiction to comfort and convenience. And I want you to really hear me on this, because this is one of the greatest traps of the modern world. We live in a time where everything around you has been engineered to make life easier, faster, more comfortable. You don't even have to leave your house to get food anymore. Just press a button and it shows up. You don't even need to think about what to watch. Your screen suggests it for you. You don't even need to walk across the room to turn off the lights. Your voice command does it. Technology has given us comfort on demand, convenience at every turn. Here's the truth. If you're not careful, it will cost you your edge, your drive, and your discipline. Comfort feels good in the short term, but it kills growth in the long term. Think about the strongest people in history, the innovators, the leaders, the ones who created breakthroughs. None of them came from comfort. They came from pressure, struggle, resistance. Fire forges steel. Adversity builds character. Yet today, most people are running from even the slightest discomfort. What happens when you do that? You get soft, you get weak, you trade potential for pleasure, and you wonder why you don't follow through. Let me ask you, how many times have you set a goal only to quit the moment it got uncomfortable? You wanted to wake up early, but the bed was warm and cozy. You wanted to hit the gym, but the couch and TV felt easier. You wanted to start that project, but scrolling on your phone gave you instant dopamine. That's the addiction to ease. If you keep feeding it, it robs you of everything you're capable of. Discipline doesn't live in comfort. Discipline lives in the place where most people quit. Discipline lives in the moment you feel resistance and decide to step into it instead of away from it. And here's the beautiful part. Every time you choose discomfort over convenience, you're not just getting through a moment, you're rewiring your brain. You're conditioning yourself to be stronger. You're teaching yourself, I don't need easy. I create my own strength. Some of you in this room have been negotiating with yourself for years. You've been saying, I'll start when it feels right. I'll do it when I feel ready. Push harder when I'm motivated. Let me tell you something. You will never feel ready. Discipline is not built in the moments of readiness. Discipline is built in the moments when everything in you says stop and you say go. That's where the shift happens. Let me give you a real example. There was a man I worked with who wanted to become a marathon runner. The problem, he hated running. The first mile felt like hell. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, his body wanted to quit. Here's what he did. Every time that voice in his head said stop, he went a little further. Mile by mile, he conditioned himself not to back down when it got uncomfortable. Within a year, he didn't just finish a marathon, he finished it strong. Not because it was easy, but because he built discipline in the fire of discomfort. That's the model. Now let's bring it back to you. Where in your life have you been choosing comfort when you should be choosing growth? Maybe it's your health. You say you want to be fit, but you grab the fast food because it's easier. Maybe it's your work. You say you want success, but you waste hours in distractions because it feels better in the moment. Maybe it's your relationships. You say you want connection, but you avoid the hard conversations because comfort feels safer than honesty. Look at those areas because that's where your discipline is being tested and lost. In 2025, this matters more than ever because the world is only getting faster, easier, more convenient, and while everyone else is getting weaker, you have a chance to get stronger by choosing the harder path. You want an edge. Stop living like the masses. Others choose the shortcut, take the long road. When others numb themselves with distraction, sit in the silence and do the work. When others run from discomfort, run into it. Because the very thing you resist is the very thing that will build you. Here's the truth, your body, your mind, Your spirit, they were never designed for a life of pure comfort. Growth only happens under resistance. Your muscles don't grow if you don't push them past their limits. Your mind doesn't expand if you don't stretch it beyond what's easy. Your soul doesn't evolve if you don't face the fire of challenges. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your greatest ally. Let's be clear, I'm not telling you to torture yourself. I'm telling you to stop running from the small battles that would make you stronger. Take the cold shower instead of the warm one. Put down the phone when your impulse says scroll, for the workout when your body says stay still. Choose water when your craving screams for sugar. Each time you do, you're building the muscle of discipline. And just like a muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it gets. At first, it feels hard. First, it feels unnatural. But after enough repetitions, it becomes who you are. Just like the identity shift we talked about earlier, this isn't about forcing yourself forever. It's about conditioning yourself until the hard thing becomes your new normal. Until you're not just someone who occasionally chooses discomfort, you're someone who thrives in it. Let me share something important. When you break the addiction to the comfort, you unlock confidence. Because deep down, confidence doesn't come from pretending. It doesn't come from hoping. It comes from knowing that when things get tough, knowing that you can rely on yourself. That's real confidence, and it's born in discomfort. So here's the challenge. Stop waiting for life to be easy. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Stop thinking discipline will show up when you finally feel comfortable. It won't. Discipline is built in discomfort. Discipline is built when you lean into resistance instead of running from it. Discipline is built when you prove to yourself and over that you can do hard things. And if you do that, if you commit to breaking the addiction to comfort in 2025, then you won't just be disciplined, you'll be unstoppable. The third step to mastering self-discipline is to design rituals that pull you forward. Because here's the truth. Discipline is not about waking up every single day with an unlimited tank of willpower. Willpower runs out, motivation fades. But rituals, systems, and environments, they do the heavy lifting for you. If you rely only on willpower, you'll fail the moment life throws resistance your way. But if you build rituals that anchor you, that lock you into momentum, then even on the days when you don't feel like it, you'll still follow through. Think about this. Every single person in this room already has rituals. You have morning rituals, you have evening rituals, you have emotional rituals, even if you don't call them that. For some people, the ritual is hitting snooze 5 times. For others, it's scrolling on their phone for an hour before even getting out of bed. Those rituals set the tone for the day. They either prime you for strength or they prime you for weakness. The difference between the disciplined and the undisciplined is not that one group has rituals and the other doesn't. The difference is that the disciplined design theirs with intention. If you look at the most successful people in any field, athletes, leaders, entrepreneurs, they don't just stumble into discipline. They build environments and habits that make discipline automatic. They know that when decision making is left to chance, emotion will take over. And emotion rarely chooses the hard thing. When you structure your day so that the right choice is the easy choice, you stop fighting battles and start winning by design. Let me give you an example. A man once told me he couldn't stop snacking at night. He'd come home, he was tired. Before he even realized it, he was halfway through a bag of chips. He said, I just don't have the discipline. But when I asked him what his environment looked like, it made sense. He kept junk food everywhere on the counter in the cupboards, right where he could see it. His environment was designed for failure. The moment he changed the ritual, cleared the junk, replaced it with healthy snacks, set a rule that the kitchen closed at a certain hour, suddenly his lack of discipline wasn't a problem anymore. His ritual supported his goal. That's the power of design. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. And in 2025, when distractions are louder than ever, when everything around you is pulling for your attention, your systems will decide your destiny. Now, rituals don't need to be complicated. In fact, the simpler, the better. A morning ritual of journaling for 10 minutes, moving your body and setting clear intentions can shift your entire day. An evening ritual of putting your phone away, reviewing your wins, and planning tomorrow can change your momentum. These are not small things, they're anchors. And anchors keep you steady when storms hit. And let's not forget accountability as a ritual. If you're only accountable to yourself, it's too easy to negotiate. When you build a ritual of accountability, whether it's a workout partner, a mastermind group, or even a public declaration of your goals, you raise the stakes. Humans are wired to avoid letting others down. Use that wiring to your advantage. Make accountability part of your structure. The key is consistency. A ritual is not something you do once and forget. A ritual becomes powerful because it's repeated until it shapes your identity. Just like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it. You don't debate it, you just do it. That's the level you want your rituals to reach. So when it's time to work, you don't question it, you start. When it's time to move, you don't negotiate, you move. When it's time to say no to distractions, you don't fight, you simply follow your system. Now, some of you might say, but I like being spontaneous. I don't want to live like a robot. Listen, rituals don't take away freedom, they give you freedom. Because when your rituals handle the basics, your mind is free to create, to innovate, to play. The undisciplined person thinks they're free because they resist structure, but really they're a slave to their impulses. The disciplined person uses rituals to create space for real freedom. Here's another thing. Rituals are not just about what you do, but also about what you don't allow. For some people, powerful ritual is setting digital boundaries. No social media before noon, no emails first thing in the morning. Why? Because those inputs hijack your focus. And when your focus is stolen, your discipline is gone. Protecting your focus is one of the most important rituals you can create in 2025 because attention is the new currency. If you can't control your attention, you can't control your life. Think about athletes again. They have training rituals, eating rituals, sleeping rituals, recovery rituals, not because they're obsessed with control, but because they know that winning is not about one big decision. It's about hundreds of little ones executed consistently. The only way to execute consistently is to make those actions automatic. That's what rituals do. So here's what I want you to realize. You don't need more discipline than anyone else. You need smarter rituals. You need systems that pull you forward instead of relying on willpower to push you forward. Imagine waking up tomorrow with rituals so strong that you don't waste time debating, you don't waste energy negotiating, you just execute. Imagine how much more momentum, how much more confidence, how much more success you'd create. And let me tell you something powerful. You already know which rituals are hurting you and which rituals would serve you. You don't need someone to tell you that hitting snooze 10 times kills your day. You don't need someone to tell you that scrolling endlessly eats your focus. You don't need someone to tell you that checking your phone before you even breathe in the morning weakens your mindset. You already know. The question is, you willing to break the old rituals and replace them with ones that serve your future? Because here's the reality. If you don't create rituals that pull you forward, you will fall into rituals that pull you backward. There's no neutral. There's no standing still. Every day your rituals are shaping your destiny. The only question is, are they shaping it toward discipline or toward regret? So stop relying on motivation. Stop thinking you need to feel like it every single day. Start building the rituals, the structures, the anchors that will carry you when your emotions won't. Because when your rituals are aligned with your vision, discipline is no longer a struggle. It becomes your natural rhythm. That's the real power of rituals. The fourth step to mastering self-discipline is learning to master the art of saying no. And I don't mean the polite no, the half-hearted no, the maybe later. No, I mean the firm, grounded, unapologetic no that comes from absolute clarity about what you want and who you are becoming. Because here's the truth, every yes you give to something meaningless is a no you're giving to your future. Every time you say yes to distraction, you're saying no to focus. Every time you say yes to comfort, you're saying no to growth. Every time you say yes to other people's demands, you're saying no to your own priorities. And most people live their lives handing out yeses like candy, and then they wonder why they're stuck, overwhelmed, unfulfilled. It's because they've never learned the discipline of no. I want you to think about this for a moment. How many times in the last week did you agree to something you didn't want to do? Maybe it was a social event you didn't care about. Maybe it was spending time on something that added nothing to your life. Maybe it was giving your attention to conversations, gossip, drama that left you drained. How often did you do it because you were afraid of disappointing someone else, or because it was easier than standing firm, or because you didn't want to feel uncomfortable? That's the trap. The inability to say no is one of the biggest destroyers of self-discipline, because discipline isn't just about doing the right things. It's about refusing the wrong things. It's about having the courage to say, this does not serve me. This does not align with my vision. This does not belong in my life. And let me tell you something powerful. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to your strength, yes to your clarity, yes to your future. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but if I say no, I'll let people down. They won't like me. I'll look selfish. Let me tell you, being a people pleaser will destroy your discipline faster than anything else, because you can't serve two masters. You can't build the life you were born to live if you're constantly living to please others. And the irony is, when you sacrifice your own goals, your own dreams, your own discipline just to make everyone else happy, you don't even get the respect you're hoping for. You end up drained, resentful, and unfulfilled. That doesn't serve anyone. The most powerful version of you is not the one who says yes to everything. It's the one who stands tall in clarity, chooses deliberately, who protects their focus like it's sacred. Think of it this way: your time is the most valuable currency you'll ever own. Once it's gone, you never get it back. And yet, most people spend it like it's endless. They hand it out without thinking. But disciplined people guard it like treasure. They understand that every hour spent is a piece of their life they'll never get again. So they say no to anything that doesn't move them forward, to anything that steals their energy, no to anything that doesn't align with their highest standards. And this doesn't just apply to other people, it applies to yourself. You have to learn to say no to your own impulses. No to the voice in your head that says, just skip the workout today, you deserve a break. No to the temptation that says, one more scroll, one more episode, one more snack, it won't matter. No to the pattern that whispers, start tomorrow. Tomorrow is a lie. Tomorrow is the comfort zone disguised as a promise. And the disciplined person knows how to look temptation in the eye and say, not today, not anymore. No, it's not easy at first. Saying no feels uncomfortable because we're wired to seek approval, to avoid conflict, to take the path of least resistance. But the more you practice it, the stronger you get. And here's the beauty. You don't have to explain your no to anyone. You don't owe anyone a justification for protecting your future. A simple, no, that doesn't work for me, is enough. Stop apologizing for valuing yourself. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop apologizing for being committed to your own growth. There's a story of a young man who wanted to build his business, but every time his friends called him out to party, he said yes. He thought he was maintaining relationships, but deep down, he was avoiding discipline. He never said no, and because of that, years went by with no progress. One day, he drew a line. He told his friends, I love you guys, but I'm not available for this anymore. I'm building something bigger. Some friends left. Some mocked him. The ones who truly cared respected his commitment. And because he learned to say no, his yeses became powerful. His yeses were no longer scattered. They were focused. And that focus created results. That's what I want you to understand. Yes only has power if your no has conviction. If you say yes to everything, your yes means nothing. But when you say no to the wrong things, your yes to the right things carries weight. That's when discipline feels strong. That's when life feels aligned. So let me ask you, where do you need to start saying no in your life right now? Who do you need to say no to? What habits? What distractions? What excuses do you need to shut down? Maybe it's saying no to the endless digital noise that pulls your focus away. Maybe it's saying no to late nights that rob you of your energy. Maybe it's saying no to people who drain you instead of elevate you. Maybe it's saying no to your own comfort zone that's been whispering lies in your ear for years. And here's the most important part. You don't say no from a place of weakness. You say no from a place of strength. You say no because you're saying yes to something bigger. You say no because you've decided your future matters more than instant gratification. You say no because your destiny deserves protection. Every no is a boundary. Every boundary is a declaration. Every declaration is a step into the disciplined, powerful, unstoppable version of you. So don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to stand firm. Don't be afraid to disappoint the world if it means you won't disappoint yourself. Because when you master the art of saying no, you unlock the ability to fully commit to the yes that matters most. That's where real discipline lives. The fifth step to mastering self-discipline is learning how to use pain and pleasure intelligently. At the core, every decision you make, every action you take is driven by these two forces. Everything you do in life is either an attempt to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. That's the engine behind human behavior. If you're disciplined, it's because you've linked more pleasure to following through than to quitting. If you're inconsistent, it's because somewhere deep inside, you've linked more pain to doing the hard thing than to staying comfortable. So here's the truth. You don't have a discipline problem, you have an association problem. Your brain is making decisions based on how it connects pain and pleasure. If working out feels like pain, if waking up early feels like pain, focusing feels like pain, then you'll avoid it. But if eating junk feels like pleasure, scrolling endlessly feels like pleasure, procrastinating feels like pleasure, then you'll keep going back to it. The problem isn't you, it's the meaning you've attached. And this is where the shift happens. Because once you take control of what you link pain and pleasure to, you take control of your discipline. That means instead of waiting for motivation, instead of waiting for the perfect mood, you reprogram your brain to crave what builds you and reject what destroys you. That's how you create consistency. Think about it. Have you ever had an area of your life where you made a massive change in an instant? Maybe you gave up a bad habit. Maybe you finally walked away from a toxic relationship. Maybe you suddenly committed to something you'd been putting off for years. Why? Because in that moment, you linked enough pain to staying the same and enough pleasure to changing. That's what creates lasting breakthroughs. Not just logic, not just willpower, emotion, pain, and pleasure. I remember meeting a man who struggled with smoking for 20 years. He tried every method, patch his gum, cutting down gradually, but nothing stuck. And when I asked him why he couldn't quit, he said, because cigarettes relax me, they calm my nerves, they make me feel good. Do you see it? He had linked smoking to pleasure. And every time he thought about quitting, he linked it to pain. Pain of withdrawal, pain of losing that comfort, pain of change. So, of course, discipline failed him, but then something happened. He lost a close friend to lung cancer. And in that moment, the association shifted. Suddenly, smoking was no longer linked to relaxation. It was linked to death, regret, loss. The pain outweighed the pleasure. And from that moment forward, he never touched another cigarette again. It wasn't about willpower. It was about wiring. That's the level of power you have when you start using pain and pleasure consciously. So let me ask you, what are the things you say you want, but you haven't been consistent with? Maybe it's your health, your finances, your focus, your habits. And let me challenge you. What pain have you linked to discipline in those areas? Stories have you told yourself that make it feel heavy, boring, difficult? Because until you change that story, you'll keep sabotaging yourself. Here's how you shift it. First, link massive pain to the cost of not following through. Not a little pain, massive pain. See the price you'll pay if you keep giving in to laziness. Picture the weight of regret 5 years from now if you keep saying tomorrow. Imagine the health issues, the lost opportunities, broken dreams that come from refusing to build discipline. Make it real. Make it raw. Don't sugarcoat it. Because the truth is, your brain will do anything to avoid pain if you make it strong enough. And second, link massive pleasure to following through. Don't just think about the grind of waking up early. See the pride in yourself for owning your morning. Don't just think about the discomfort of working out. Feel the energy, the confidence, the strength you gain. Don't just think about the challenge of focusing. Imagine the results, the achievements, the sense of power that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. Make it emotional. Make it exciting. When pleasure is wired to discipline, you'll crave it. Let me give you an example of how this works. Imagine you have a goal to get fit, but every time you think of working out, you tell yourself, "Ooh, it's going to be painful. I hate sweating. I hate the gym." What are you linking to the workout?
Pain.
So, of course, you won't want to do it. Now imagine you flip the story. You tell yourself, that workout is freedom. That workout is me taking control. That workout is me proving to myself that I'm powerful. That workout is me building the body and energy to live life fully. Suddenly, the same activity has a different meaning. And because the meaning changed, the behavior changes. This is why some people thrive under discipline and others collapse under it. It's not the actions themselves, it's the meaning behind them. The disciplined person doesn't see discipline as pain. They've conditioned themselves to see it as power, as joy, as freedom. And that's the secret. You don't have to fight against your brain. You rewire it so that discipline becomes your source of pleasure. Now let's be real. This doesn't happen overnight. You don't just flip a switch and suddenly everything feels pleasurable. You condition it, you reinforce it. You remind yourself daily of the pain of failure and the pleasure of follow through. You visualize, you declare, you celebrate your wins, you anchor it again and again until your nervous system adopts it as truth. And once it does, discipline no longer feels forced. It feels natural. Some of you here have been trying to force discipline by pushing against pain, by gritting your teeth, using raw willpower. And that works for a while, but it always breaks down because eventually emotion overrides logic. But when you wire the right associations, when you use pain and pleasure intelligently, discipline isn't a fight, it's a flow. You to imagine this. Imagine every time you're tempted to procrastinate, your brain immediately flashes the pain of regret, the lost time, the missed opportunities, and it disgusts you. And then imagine every time you take action, every time you follow through, your brain floods you with the feeling of pride, joy, and satisfaction. Imagine how much easier discipline would feel. Imagine how unstoppable you'd become. That's not a fantasy, that's conditioning. And you can do it. At the end of the day, this is about leverage. If you want to master self-discipline, you can't just fight with willpower, you need leverage. And the greatest leverage you'll ever have is mastering the two forces that drive everything you do. Use them unconsciously, and they'll control you. Use them intelligently, and you'll control your destiny. Because when you wire enough pain to giving up and enough pleasure to following through, quitting stops being an option. That's the power of pain and pleasure. The sixth step to mastering self-discipline is building an identity that aligns with the future you want. Because here's the truth. Behavior may create results in the short term. Identity determines results for a lifetime. You can try to force yourself to act disciplined. You can set goals. You can make plans. You can push yourself through sheer effort. But if deep down you still see yourself as someone who quits, someone who procrastinates, someone who can't stay consistent, your brain will always find a way to pull you back. You can't consistently outperform the image you hold of yourself. Think about it for a moment. If you see yourself as a smoker, no matter how many times you quit, eventually you'll go back because you still identify as one. If you see yourself as someone who's bad with money, even when you earn more, you'll find ways to lose it. If you see yourself as lazy, then even when you start strong on something, eventually you'll slow down because your identity will demand consistency with who you believe you are. This is why discipline can feel like a battle, because your actions are trying to go one direction. Your identity is anchored in the opposite. So the real key isn't just behavior change, it's identity change. When you shift who you believe you are, when you embody the identity of someone who is disciplined, who follows through, does what they say they will do, then your behavior aligns naturally. It's not forced anymore, it's not an act, it's who you are. And once something becomes who you are, you no longer negotiate with yourself. You don't have to fight to be disciplined because you've decided this is me. This is how I live. Let's make this real. If I asked you, are you the kind of person who brushes your teeth every morning? You wouldn't hesitate. You'd say yes without even thinking. Why? Because it's your identity. You don't sit there negotiating with yourself every morning asking, should I brush or should I not? You just do it because it's who you are. Imagine having that same level of identity around discipline. Imagine being the kind of person who doesn't even think twice about waking up early, about following through on commitments, about sticking to your vision. It's just who you are. That's the level where discipline stops being a struggle and becomes automatic. The question is, how do you build that? You start by making small, consistent agreements with yourself and keeping them. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you cast a vote for the identity of being disciplined. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the identity of being inconsistent. Over time, your brain collects those votes and builds the story of who you are. So if you want to shift identity, start stacking those votes in the direction you want. Don't underestimate the small wins because they're building the foundation of who you become. Here's where most people go wrong. They wait for evidence before they claim the identity. They say, I'll see myself as disciplined once I prove it. No, you have to flip it. You have to claim the identity first, then your actions follow. You don't become a disciplined person by waiting until you've built a perfect record. You become disciplined by deciding now, this is who I am, and then backing it up with action. It's a declaration, not a negotiation. This is what separates those who transform from those who stay stuck. They stop saying things like, I'm trying to get disciplined, and they start saying, I am disciplined. They stop saying, I'm trying to get healthier, and they start saying, I am healthy. Because words shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. If you call yourself weak long enough, you'll act weak. If you call yourself powerful long enough, you'll start acting powerful. One of the greatest lies we're told is that discipline is about doing something hard forever. But in reality, it's about becoming someone different. And the moment your identity shifts, the hard things stop feeling so hard. Because now not doing them feels out of alignment with who you are. Imagine someone who sees themselves as a runner. If they go a week without running, they feel off. Imagine someone who sees themselves as a leader. If they don't step up in a situation, feels wrong. That's the level you want to reach with discipline, where not following through feels unnatural. So I'll challenge you right now. Stop asking, what do I need to do? And start asking, do I need to become? Because once you decide who you are, the doing takes care of itself. And here's the beauty. You don't have to wait years to shift your identity. Identity changes the moment you decide. You can decide right now in this room that from this day forward, you are disciplined, you are consistent, you are reliable to yourself, and then you live into that decision one action at a time. And don't get me wrong, it won't be perfect. You'll still slip, you'll still stumble. But the difference is, instead of saying, see, I'm not disciplined, you'll say, that slip isn't me. That was a moment, but it's not my identity. You'll stop reinforcing the old story and keep feeding the new one. Because that's what discipline really is. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent with who you've chosen to be. Every time you feel tempted to give in, I want you to pause and remind yourself, that's not me anymore. Every time you feel the urge to quit, I want you to say, that's the old story, and I've written a new one. Every time you catch yourself doubting, I want you to declare, I am disciplined. I do what I say I will do. And when you do that enough, it stops being a declaration. It becomes reality. The people who master self-discipline aren't superhuman. They're not stronger than you. They're not smarter than you. They just decided to stop identifying with weakness and start identifying with strength. And once they did, the game changed. And the same can happen for you. If you're willing to claim it, own it, live it. Because the moment you stop seeing discipline as something you do and start seeing it as who you are, everything shifts.